No intros, no soft takes. Just 20 Hollywood icons and the real dirt they tried to bury. Let's get into it, scandal by scandal. William Desmond Taylor. In 1922, director William Desmond Taylor was found dead in his Los Angeles home. He was a respected filmmaker, known for working with stars like Mary Pickford. But what happened in his apartment turned into a Hollywood mystery that's never been solved. Police found no signs of a break-in. Several actresses, including Mabel Normand and Mary Miles Minter, were quickly linked to the case. Minter's love letters to Taylor were leaked, and rumors swirled about secret relationships, jealous fights, and even blackmail. Studios went into panic mode. They didn't want their stars dragged into scandal. The press had a field day. The headlines were relentless, and the story refused to fade. No one was ever charged, but careers were ruined anyway. Mabel Normand's image never recovered. Minter vanished from the spotlight within a few years. Taylor's death changed how studios handled bad press and how fast they could turn on their own. It also gave the public its first real look at how messy Hollywood life could be behind the scenes. Wallace Reed. He was a matinee idol, the kind of clean-cut hero studios loved. But in 1919, he was badly injured while filming in Oregon. Studio doctors gave him morphine to keep him going. No one expected the drug to take over his life. For years, Reed kept working. He was in pain, but the studio needed him on set. As his condition worsened, they hid it from the public. His wife tried to get him help, but he was trapped in the system. In 1923, he died in a sanitarium at just 31 years old. Reed's death shocked fans. He was young, successful, and seemed to have it all. But behind the scenes, he was overworked and addicted, pushed past the limit by studio pressure. The press and public started asking how far studios would go to protect profits, even if it meant risking lives. Reed became one of the first cautionary tales about what fame could really cost. Jean Harlo. In 1932, she married producer Paul Byrne. Just 2 months later, Byrne was found dead in their home. The official story was that he had taken his own life, but rumors told a different story. Some said there was another woman involved. Others whispered about fights, jealousy, and secret letters. MGM quickly stepped in to control the story. Studio bosses removed notes from the scene and shaped the press coverage to protect Harlo's image. The scandal didn't slow her career, at least not right away. But behind the glamour, Harlo was shaken. Byrne's death followed her for years, and reporters kept digging. No one really knew what happened in that house, and no one was ever charged. Harlo kept acting, but the public fascination with her personal life never faded. Shirley Temple. She was America's sweetheart, but her time in Hollywood wasn't all smiles and curls. She later revealed that even as a child, she faced inappropriate behavior from powerful men behind the scenes. One incident stood out. At age 12, Temple said a top producer exposed himself during a meeting. She didn't understand what was happening until years later. The moment was brushed off at the time, but it stayed with her. Temple also faced grueling work schedules and constant demands from studio executives. She was expected to perform on cue, charm every room, and stay perfect in the public eye. Mistakes weren't allowed, and childhood wasn't really part of the deal. Though she became a symbol of joy on screen, her real-life experience was far more complicated. As she got older, Temple spoke openly about the pressures she faced. Clara Bo. As the original It girl, she became one of the first widely recognized screen icons in Hollywood. But behind her wild popularity was a storm of abuse, pressure, and betrayal. Bo came from poverty and had no powerful backers. Studios saw her as a moneymaker, not a person. She worked nonstop, often shooting multiple films at once. Things started to spiral when personal staff and insiders began leaking stories to the press. A former assistant released a tell-all packed with outrageous claims, most of them unproven. He alleged she engaged in inappropriate behavior, associated with the wrong crowd, and threw out-of-control parties. Though none of it was verified, the gossip stuck. Tabloids couldn't get enough. The studio refused to defend her. She was left to fight it alone. The stress became overwhelming. Bo had a breakdown and was institutionalized by the early 30s. She eventually walked away from acting, still young, still bankable, but she never fully returned. Louis B. Mayer. On paper, he was the fatherly figure behind classic hits. In reality, he was feared more than admired. Mayer had full control over actors' careers, contracts, appearances, and private lives. No one said no to him without consequences. Judy Garland recalled Mayer hugging her in ways that didn't feel right. Others said actresses were tested by studio heads before they ever got a screen test. It wasn't just about roles. It was about loyalty, submission, and silence. He could make or break careers with one phone call. He told stars who to date, when to get married, and when to vanish for health reasons. If you got pregnant without permission, he decided what happened next. Studios spun every story. Mayer handled damage control like a political machine. Few dared to speak up while he was in power. Too many needed the paycheck. Those who resisted were replaced. His system worked because it kept stars terrified and the public unaware. Mayer was never charged with anything, but the stories have echoed for decades. Judy Garland. She was just 13 when MGM cast her as Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz. To them, she wasn't a child, she was a product. They put her on meds to keep her awake, then sleeping pills at night. She filmed for hours, day after day. If she gained a pound, executives mocked her in front of the crew. By the time she turned 18, Garland was already dependent on pills. Her self-esteem was destroyed. Studio handlers monitored her food, her sleep, even her conversations. When she cried, they told her to keep working. When she broke down, they covered it up. She tried to walk away several times, but MGM always pulled her back. They owned her contract and her public image. Her breakdowns made headlines, but the root cause rarely got mentioned. The studio kept up the illusion, no matter what it did to her health. Later in life, Garland told interviewers what really happened. She said they treated her like a machine, not a girl. Charlie Chaplin. By the 1940s, he was more than a movie star. He was a global icon. But his personal life and political beliefs soon made him a target. He dated younger women, including several teenagers. One woman accused him of fathering her child. The case went to court, and though a blood test cleared him, the judge ruled against him anyway. The tabloids ran with it. At the same time, Chaplin made speeches that criticized American politics. He refused to join the war effort early on, then later supported causes considered too left-wing. The FBI opened a file on him. J. Edgar Hoover believed Chaplin was a threat. Public opinion turned fast. In 1952, Chaplin left for a trip to Europe. While he was gone, U.S. officials told him he couldn't come back without reapplying for entry. He never did. He spent the rest of his life in Switzerland, making only a few more films. Errol Flynn. He was the definition of a movie star. Swashbuckling, charming, and wild. Off-screen, his lifestyle matched his roles. Fast boats, fast cars, and even faster romances. But in 1943, his world came crashing down when two young women accused him of misconduct. The case went to trial, and the courtroom turned into a circus. Flynn showed up looking relaxed, even cocky. Reporters filled the gallery. Fans camped outside. The defense painted him as a playboy, not a predator. The women were cross-examined for days. Flynn was eventually acquitted, but the trial exposed everything he worked hard to keep private. Details about his partying, drinking, and aggressive behavior became public record. While he avoided conviction, the damage was done. Some studios backed away, others leaned into his new bad boy image. The phrase, "in like Flynn," became part of American slang. Some used it to praise his charm. Others knew what it really meant. He kept working, but the shine had worn off. From that point on, Flynn was no longer the flawless hero. He was a warning wrapped in a tuxedo, and Hollywood never let him forget it. Rita Hayworth. She lit up screens with her role in Gilda, but off-screen she had almost no control over her life. Under contract with Columbia Pictures, she was micromanaged by studio boss Harry Cohn, who treated her more like a product than a person. He dictated her roles, appearance, even her press interviews. When Hayworth married Prince Ali Khan in 1949, she hoped to leave Hollywood behind. But Cohn didn't like losing his biggest star. The studio stalled her projects and leaked unflattering details about her personal life to the press. When the marriage fell apart just 2 years later, Columbia froze her out even further. She returned to find her career had been quietly sabotaged. Cohn reportedly punished her for stepping out of line, assigning her weak scripts, slashing her promotion budget, and downplaying her star status. Hayworth was exhausted. She once said, "Men fell in love with Gilda, but they woke up with me." Frank Sinatra. He was known for his voice, but just as famous for his temper. In the mid-1940s, he was still climbing back from a career slump, and behind the scenes, things got messy. Sinatra had a habit of lashing out at reporters, hotel staff, and sometimes even his own friends. He once punched a columnist for writing something negative. Another time, he knocked out a casino manager's tooth over a billing dispute. Sinatra also had long-rumored connections to organized crime. He was seen with mob figures like Sam Giancana and Lucky Luciano. FBI files tracked him for years, though no formal charges were filed. Studios and promoters looked the other way. He sold tickets, and that was what mattered. Even his comeback in From Here to Eternity was whispered to have been helped along by quiet phone calls and pressure behind closed doors. When people crossed Sinatra, he remembered, and when he needed something, doors opened. Ingmar Bergman. She was one of the most beloved actresses in the world. She starred in Casablanca and had a pristine public image. That changed overnight in 1950 when she began a relationship with Italian director Roberto Rossellini. Both were married to other people at the time, and Bergman became pregnant before her divorce was finalized. The backlash was immediate. Religious groups condemned her. A U.S. senator went so far as to call her a powerful influence for evil. Hollywood dropped her. Talk shows and newspapers ran editorials shaming her. She left the country and didn't return to American films for years. What happened to Bergman wasn't just personal. It was public punishment. She had broken the rules that male stars often ignored without consequence. The studios didn't defend her. They cut ties and moved on. She eventually returned in the late 50s and even won another Oscar. But for years she was blacklisted in everything but name. Elizabeth Taylor. She wasn't new to drama, but in the late 1950s, her personal life became a national obsession. After the sudden death of her third husband, Mike Todd, she started a relationship with singer Eddie Fisher, who was married at the time to Taylor's close friend, Debbie Reynolds. The affair exploded in the press. Taylor was called a homewrecker. Fans sent hate mail. She and Fisher married quickly after his divorce, but the damage to both their reputations lingered. Not long after, Taylor met Richard Burton while filming Cleopatra. They began an affair, both of them still married. Paparazzi followed them across continents. The Vatican even issued a public statement condemning the relationship. Despite the outrage, Taylor's films kept making money. Studios used the drama for promotion, even as they tried to rein in her behavior. She leaned into the chaos, refusing to apologize. For every scandal, there was another headline and another paycheck. Howard Hughes. He was a billionaire, a film producer, and a recluse. But in the 1950s, his obsession with actresses took a darker turn. He signed women like Jane Russell and Jean Peters to long-term contracts that went far beyond professional deals. Hughes tracked who they dated, what they wore, and where they went. He had private investigators follow them and used handlers to enforce his rules. His mansion became a holding place for rising starlets, some of whom never made it to the screen. Others landed roles, but at a cost. Hughes was known to keep actresses waiting years before releasing their projects. He shelved films out of jealousy, delayed careers, and dropped stars who didn't meet his personal standards. He wasn't accused publicly in his lifetime. His money and power made that nearly impossible. But inside the industry, people whispered about how he operated. Directors, agents, and even studio execs knew his influence could block careers overnight. Howard Hughes didn't just finance movies. He controlled the women in them. And as his mental health declined, so did the futures of the people he pulled into his orbit. Lana Turner. In 1958, things hit a breaking point when her teenage daughter, Cheryl Crane, fatally stabbed Turner's boyfriend, Johnny Stompanato, in their Beverly Hills home. Stompanato had a reputation for being violent and controlling. Cheryl, just 14 at the time, said she was protecting her mother during a heated confrontation. The press exploded. Reporters swarmed the courtroom. Lana testified through tears. The coroner's inquest ruled the act justifiable, but that didn't stop the speculation. Some believed Lana staged it. Others questioned if she was a victim or a willing participant in the toxic relationship. Stompanato's connections to organized crime only deepened the scandal. The story had everything: fame, danger, and family drama. Studios panicked. Public opinion split. But oddly enough, the scandal gave Turner a new kind of fame. Her next film, Imitation of Life, became a box office hit. Lana Turner didn't just survive the scandal, she worked through it, but it came at a cost. The headlines never let her forget, and neither did Hollywood. For years, the question wasn't just what happened that night, it was whether she ever really escaped it. Robert Mitchum. He had the tough guy image down, but in 1948, that persona got a real-world test when he was arrested during a police raid in Los Angeles. He was found at a house where prohibited substances were present and was arrested on the spot. The charges led to a high-profile trial. Mitchum didn't deny anything. He even joked about it to reporters. He was convicted and sentenced to 60 days behind bars. Most thought that would end his career. Studios prepared for the worst, but something strange happened. Fans didn't turn on him. If anything, his rebellious image became more appealing. The studio released Rachel and the Stranger while he was in jail, and it was a hit. He served his time, posed for photos outside the jailhouse, and got right back to work. Mitchum didn't beg for forgiveness. He leaned into it. The scandal became part of his brand. Years later, the conviction was overturned due to procedural issues. But by then, it didn't matter. Mitchum had survived something that would have ended most careers. George Raft. He built his career playing gangsters, but unlike most actors, he wasn't just pretending. Behind the scenes, Raft had deep ties to organized crime figures, including Bugsy Siegel and Meyer Lansky. He grew up in New York's Hell's Kitchen and ran in mob circles before landing roles in Hollywood. By the 1930s, he was a major star, but his off-screen relationships caused constant problems. He was seen socializing with underworld figures, attending mob-run nightclubs, and even helping certain men land film work. The FBI kept a file on him for years. He also allegedly used his influence to interfere with criminal investigations. One story claims he stopped a hit on actor Gary Cooper by stepping in with mob connections. Another suggests he helped intimidate witnesses in a high-profile gambling case. While nothing was ever proven in court, the whispers followed him everywhere. Studios grew nervous. Raft started losing roles, not because audiences turned on him, but because his off-screen life made studios look bad. By the 1950s, his star had faded. Joan Crawford. Her death in 1977 didn't mark the end of her story. It opened a new chapter. In 1978, her adopted daughter Christina released a memoir titled Mommy Dearest. It painted Crawford as emotionally unstable, physically abusive, and obsessed with image over love. The book exploded in popularity and controversy. Christina described scenes of rage, beatings, and bizarre punishments. One moment became infamous: Crawford allegedly screaming about wire hangers. Fans were shocked. Hollywood insiders split. Some confirmed the harsh behavior, others called the book revenge fiction. Crawford had always been known for her intense discipline and carefully managed public image. She was a survivor, rising from poverty to become one of MGM's top stars. But Mommy Dearest shattered that image. The book was later turned into a movie, amplifying the impact even more. Mickey Rooney. As a child, he was the top-earning actor in America. He had fame, money, and decades of work under his belt. But in his final years, a darker story came out, one involving elder abuse, betrayal, and financial exploitation. In 2011, Rooney shocked lawmakers when he testified before Congress. He said he was being emotionally and financially abused by his stepson, who controlled his money, isolated him from loved ones, and limited his access to food and medicine. The courtroom gasped as Rooney, frail but defiant, spoke publicly for the first time. A court later issued a restraining order and granted him financial protection. But the damage had been done. Despite earning millions over his career, Rooney died in 2014 with just $18,000 to his name.